Hello and welcome to Team PokeMart, your one-stop shop for things that you need to stop and or shop for. And today, valued customers, we have an ever-escalating number of problems. You see a certain Team PokeMart employee, not naming any names, ditto, forgot to take out our garbage last week, which of course attracted a swarm of Pokeflies that went on to attract a horde of Bellsprout and Weebell, because these dirt plants feast almost exclusively on Pokeflies, and a domino effect of events later means that the PokeMart is now infested with living plants. But you know what they say, every stick has two ends. Except this one actually, I wonder where the other end is. But the general gist is that this is an opportunity in disguise for me to extort money from you. So we are having a special on plant-based Pokemon here today, and with every purchase made, you will receive this packet of seeds, which if planted will result in the growth of a beautiful Subscribers Suppressors plant. Oh, you've not heard of it? That's unsurprising given that you shop at Team PokeMart, because smart people don't generally choose to stop by here. However, the pressing of this plant will keep you up to date with all of our latest stock. And now, let's sell you some sprouts. The Bellsprout line starts with this little guy, Bellsprout. He is a sprout, but not a bell. So already 50% of this Pokemon is a pure lie. And I apologize for that, value customers, but Bellsprout does have a huge yellow bell-shaped head. And I say huge as in relation to the rest of its body. It almost looks like an upside down picture, which may or may not become more apparent in future evolutions. And its lips are pink and rounded, remaining in this constant sort of oar shape, as if it were in a state of perpetual mind blowage whilst high. And I guess it is a grass type after all, so that makes sense. Does it express emotion? Can this mouth move? Can my mouth move? All of these questions and more will not be answered. But Bellsprout's bulbous head is supported only by its skinny twig or reed-like body, which splits into little leggy structures at the bottom. Although I use the word structure very liberally here, because I highly doubt that any credible engineer would recommend these twigs as a base to hold up the rest of this Pokemon. It is an absolute miracle that Bellsprout's head isn't just sitting on the floor, and as such, those twigs must be pure 100% muscle. And acting poorly, I might add, as arms are two big leaves, which, look, yeah. Bellsprout is a pretty big loser of the genetic lottery, there's no doubt about that. Don't let its small and strange stature fool you though. Bellsprout is in fact highly carnivorous, or micro-carnivorous anyway, as this ridiculous looking plant will relentlessly chase small insects by running swiftly with its teeny vine legs and then devouring them in its big old bell gob. Its mouth also tends to leak a grotesque corrosive fluid which is potent enough to melt even iron, so bugs are not in for a good time here. And furthermore, neither are humans if a Bellsprout so chooses to suckle upon one. Its little legs aren't just for running though, as these are roots that are capable of absorbing moisture from the soil. Very plant-like indeed. And it doesn't explicitly say so in the Pokedex, but Year 9 science has taught me that I should imagine its leaves give it nutrients as well from the sun, thanks to good old photosynthesis, which is a very difficult word to say when speaking quickly. But speaking of, we seem to have a bit of a problem developing here with all of this photosynthesizing grass rapidly growing in store, and I'm beginning to think that perhaps these promotional seeds aren't quite what I thought they were. But after plenty of running and basking and general plant being a plant style situations, Bellsprout will attain the arbitrary level of 21 and evolve into a Weepinbell. And it really is hard to know if this is a step forward, a step backwards, or perhaps not even a step at all. Steps being one of those things that is difficult to do without legs and such, as Weepinbell appears to have lost what little twigs it once had. In lieu of this, Weepinbell instead relies on bouncing its head as a means of moving around, which, yeah, sure. I mean, I suppose its little bell head has now become bigger, so much bigger that it is quite literally now its entire body, and with the leaf arms framing it, this whole aesthetic kind of reminds me of Krusty the Clown. Bellsprout's once beady set of eyes have now transformed into comical googly eyes, which account for roughly 30% of why Weepinbell is the goofiest looking Pokemon of Generation 1. Meanwhile, the thick, derpy lips account for the other 70%. But despite its dopey looking physical appearance, Weepinbell is indeed a force to be reckoned with. Following suit with Bellsprout's carnivorous traits, Weepinbell will gobble up any prey that happens to get close enough, whether that be small bugs or even average size local Pokemon managers. Size doesn't matter to this Pokemon. If it's too big, Weepinbell will just happily chop its poor victims up into smaller, easy to digest pieces using its razor sharp leaves. Not only that, but when it spots its prey, it spews out a poisonous powder in order to immobilize them, and then it finishes them off really painfully with a gob of acid. This thing is certainly much more dangerous than it looks, but then again, everything is much more dangerous than Weepinbell looks. Funnily enough, Weepinbell needs to produce its own neutralizing counter acid in order to prevent it from being disintegrated by its own offensive acid, which seems like a tricky balancing act, and perhaps that's why Weepinbell looks so concerned at all times. Now, something we haven't spoken about yet is the hook stem on top of Whippenbop's head, which is used for sleepy time. When it needs to rest, Weepinbell will quote-unquote climb up a tree, hook itself onto a sturdy branch, and then just dangle gloriously until it falls asleep. Although it has been been known to commonly fall off a branch whilst it is sleeping, so it's a very high risk, high reward proposition. High risk of falling and damaging itself, and high chance of no reward whatsoever. You're a fool, Weebell. Stop sleeping like this. And stop bouncing around my store. You're spreading the grass seeds even more, you infuriatingly dense and surprisingly dangerous plant. Oh no, they found the leaf stones in aisle 5. Oh, well, this is probably a good time to bring up the fact that once exposed to a leaf stone, a Weebell will evolve into its final form, which is by far the coolest member of this line, the Victory Bell. This is the pinnacle of everything that the Bellsprout line has to offer, and it's basically just a sort of upside down Weebell with some optional extras. However, with Victory Bell, this line's resemblance to the pitch plant becomes far more apparent, as Victory Bell's mouth sits at the top of its body with a rather delicately placed trap leaf on top that connects to its tail? It's hard to know what the biological terminology is for this thing, but it basically acts as a little lid for the mouth, which signifies the very first time in this line that a Pokemon has some sort of mechanism for closing its own mouth, so good on it. Another funky development is that 2 sharp teeth can be seen in that gaping abyss, with its eyes hidden just below the lip, giving it a very fearsome vibe which is solely missing from the Weebell incarnation. And I do really feel like out of all of the Pokemon in this line, Victory Bell really redeems itself, having been an awkward little sprout, a dumb-faced googly-eyed teenage plant, but now Victory Bell is finally the terrifying power plant that it may or may not have been destined to be. With that said, concerningly, the acid deep in the Victory Bell body has a sweet aroma like honey to lure in unsuspecting Pokemon or even unsuspecting valued customers inside. And this sweetness intensifies with every victim that is dissolved. So if you smell a particularly sweet Victory Bell, you'd best run, because that thing is a certified murder machine. But that's also not the only means of attacking, for Victory Bell isn't one to simply sit still. Its newfound long tail, I guess we'll call it, is used to make prey wander close out of curiosity, swooshing and flicking around the floors, pretending to be some sort of other animal or even insect. And any poor unfortunate soul who wanders too close, well, Victory Bell will lunge and swallow them whole. Which is probably the most iconic image of Victory Bell in your minds, as moving to notable trainers, this creature became a trademark presence within the Team Rocket trio owned by James. And as with many Pokemon in the series, James caught Weebell off screen, but he then proceeded to leave it at Butch and Cassidy's breeding center, which was of course a clever ruse, but James ended up returning to find his Pokemon having evolved into the wonderful Victory Bell, which would then proceed to spend 99.9% of its time in the series attempting to eat James's head, much to the grand annoyance of Jessie and Meowth. In fact, their frustration reached the point where they convinced James to trade his Victory Bell for a Weepinbell. However, to complicate things in that very episode, James's new Weepinbell then evolves into another Victory Bell, so we now have 2 Victory Bells sort of bouncing around, and eventually James's new and original Victory Bell would fall in love at first sight, then proceed to skip off together into the forest in order to live out the rest of their plant-related lives. So James now owns no Victory Bells, much to the delight of Jessie and Meow. Now, aside from James, there are at least 2 gym leaders who have utilized this line in their parties, the first of which is Celadon City's gym leader, Erica. She uses Victory Bell on her grass-type team in Red and Blue. However, in Pokemon Yellow, it is Butter Mia Weepinbell, which is designed to mimic her team in the anime. Victory Bell then reappears in her Gold and Silver party when you unlock the ability to go to Kanto, and this Pokemon is also present in all of the relevant remakes. Fire Red, Leaf Green, Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, lots and lots of games, with lots and lots of Victory Bell. But then if we travel to the Kalos region, grab ourselves a baguette on the way, and head on over to Coumarin City, where we will find its gym leader, Ramos, ready to battle with a Weepinbell on his team, thus making me question whether or not he is actually ready to battle. But it is also present in some of his Battle Chateau rematches as a fully evolved Victory Bell. Some more fun facts about the Bellsprout line. Despite Weepinbell and Victory Bell being the Flycatch Pokemon, Bellsprout's title is the Flower Pokemon and is shared with Vileplume and Blossom, 2 most certainly superior grass types to anything at all that we've examined here today, valued customers. But intriguingly, the entire Bellsprout line is able to learn Leech Life by breeding. However, if you want to teach the move via TM, you may be surprised to learn that you are not able to. And why? Well, because reasons. That's why. Bellsprout finds solidarity in having the lowest base special defense stat of all grass-type Pokemon, along with its chums Sunkern and Seedot. And finally, a truly useless fact. According to the Bulbapedia, in Generation 1, Victory Bell has the highest index number of all non-glitch Pokemon. And what does that mean? What is an index number, you ask? I can't even say it. That's how irrelevant it is. But it's basically a number used to identify Pokemon within the back-end programming of the game, and Victory Bell has the highest of these numbers, which is completely irrelevant to you in every way, shape, and form. But that's everything you should need to know to come by and pick up a Bellsprout, Weepinbell, or even a concerningly growing number of Victory Bell. And also, with how much this grass has grown in the store over the course of this video, it even mimics a wild all-round experience. Although I am wondering just how big this grass is going to get, but then again, that sounds like a problem for future Liam. So please do make sure to stop by Team PokeMart and say hi, which you can do in the comments below. And if you're interested in some of our other merchandise, then please do click on these tantalizing links over here. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for regular updates on our new stock. But for now, this has been Team PokeMart, and we'll see you next time.